What's going on, rock star?
Hey, what's going on there, other rock star?
I've heard that you've been doing some songwriting there, Mr. Mike.
You know what? I always do. You know, I always have a need to be creative.
Yeah.
And so while I'm taking care of my parents, I set up a studio and I have like a day room, to myself. And at least like the beautiful thing with my dad and mother, they have such a love of music and it helps them fall asleep. So at night when I practice and I write stuff, it's actually relaxing him. So that helps me with practicing. But when I get back home to Muscle Shoals, I never want to stop moving forward and creating.
Right.
And thank God, our mutual friend Charles has been so accommodating, opening up the studio to me on weird hours, weird days, last minute. He's moved people around. Just to keep writing, I just never want to stop. I always have this saying or a philosophy of, people think it's maybe, I don't find it dark. I just find it as, while I can breathe and while I can do things, I want to do as much as I can.
Yep. Yeah. When you're moving forward like that, a lot of people don't understand that about creative people, that it has nothing to do with my past. It's almost like my past has already been lived. I want to grow forward and keep doing what I need to be doing. Do you feel the same way?
Oh, absolutely. It's a strange thing. It's like I put my heart and soul into every song, and it goes through different phases. But I say, like when I'm in with Charles, and we're from the same cloth, so to speak. Like or he just knows how I'm wired. So, and not too many engineers would do what he would do, where if I have an idea, we're going to find it, or if it's just feeling right, we're not going to stop. And we've done 3 16, 18-hour days in a row. Wow. Because he just knows how I am. But like I said, I put my heart and soul. And then once I'm done with getting what I call a mix or a final mix, sometimes I'll drive 6 7 hours, Arrow. And I'll set the volume to 7, then 8 to the 9, 10. And I want to see how the frequencies are playing with each other. Yeah. As I go from up and down. And sometimes, honestly, I've ended up in Florida. I've ended up in Texas. Just driving. It's been my process for at least 6 years, because I know frequencies play different at certain volumes.
Yep.
And I make mental notes and I have certain written notes. And then I'll go to Charles or the engineer, and I'll say, okay, minute 37, I want this raised, 2 minutes 36 seconds, I want this lowered, but I want this vocal higher, and then I try to get a balance between all the volumes. And so like I said, I put everything into it, and even the poor mastering guy, usually you do 1 or 2 takes of the mastering, and sometimes I'll do 7 masters.
Wow.
And because I'm, there's just certain things I'm hearing, anyway. So to answer your question, so I put everything into whatever song I'm doing, or ever music. But as soon as it's done, I don't listen to it again until I have to rehearse for the band, and then I'm on to the next thing. And then I have the need to okay, what's the next thing? Because I felt I've put everything I have in my power to make that song as best as it could be, and I'm ready to move on. And that's been my, it's what do you want to call it? It's I wouldn't even say it's a love-hate, but it's a torturous thing to do. But I wouldn't want it any other way. Like I feel like every song I do, I hold my head up high. I know I put everything I can, and I hope that the people listen to it are feeling the emotion and the passion that's coming from our music. And if they do, then I know I did my job right.
This is every bit the reason why you've been described as being a music architect.
That's I like that.
Because you're building, you're planning. I mean, you don't just rush into a project. I mean, you have to answer the question, why?
That is a good way of describing it, and I'm there for every single process of everything, So, but Yeah, an architect is like, yeah, you look at the song as a building, and what kind of beams are you going to put here? What are you going to put in the kitchen? What are you going to put as, are you going to have a vaulted ceiling? You're going to have hardwood floors? It's the same, designing a song.
Wow.
So I get the analogy.
Yeah.
So.
When you do a song like Worlds on Fire, I mean, to mix those vocals in with that guitar, and the pacing is unbelievable. And, after hearing about you, the way you architect a song, I totally understand why the pacing is intact.
Right. Yeah, that song was that song was really a song that was never supposed to happen.
Really?
Yeah. It was, I always have I can't describe it. Again, it sounds kind of dark, but it's not really dark. It's just my wiring. I feel like if I don't get to be creative,
mm-hmm.
I sort of get like a depression from it. I really do. And like I said, Charles has been accommodating. I just got to get to the studio, and I had no idea what I was going to do. I had no idea. In fact, I probably had the wrong idea. I was going to do a cover of a friend of mine who's, a famous guitar player, but I was going to rearrange his song. I had this whole idea in my head. I had the Alabama Orchestra ready set, and I was constructing this whole like orchestration with this acoustic song. I was going to do lead vocals on it, and I was in with Charles, and Charles goes, he just looks at me, in the way that Charles does, and he goes, Mike, you write really killer riffs. Just write something. Really, that's all he did. I go, all right, the hell with it. Give me a drum loop. I don't even know. Usually before I go in, typically I'll have. I still have over 100 songs on my iPhone. I'm very antiquated on how I write, and then I have pages of lyrics, pages of chord progressions, just pages and pages. And this time I had nothing. Just absolutely the cleanest slate you could ever do.
Wow.
And he put the drum loop on, and I did that first lick, and I'm like, okay. And right away, I just know, okay, this is going to be a good song or a good idea, and then we start working it from there. And that's so yeah, that was kind of cool, because it was, like I said, it was a very clean slate, and and then in fact. This is the song back to back now from Stained, where I played bass. On World of Fire, I did the bass as well.
Okay.
For some reason, it's just I don't know. Maybe I'm becoming an okay bass player, but but I think those two songs, there's things that I'm doing rhythmically, and the bass has to be. Not like a bass player. It has to be played almost like how a guitar player would play it.
Oh, wow.
So I think it would be hard for a bass player, not because it's difficult in technique, it would be more difficult to get the exact feel, because I'm playing the bass the same exact way I play the guitar rhythmically. Mm-hmm. So the feel is so locked in on how we did Stain on My Soul. World of Fire is the same deal. But now how we mixed it was technically quite different, but the feel of it is good. And I always know it's like when another bass player who did a lot of our tracks early on, whenever he goes, yeah, you don't need me on this, then I know that, I played it right, where I got a good combination of the mic feel and what a bass player would do.
Yeah.
And this was the first time I actually, on the verses, I played keyboards on the verses.
Really?
Because our keyboardist got cancer, so he couldn't play. Mm. So, and I know a big part of our sound is the Hammond, and this was took a keyboard, ran it through guitar distortion pedals. I'm like, yeah, that sounds close enough, And then Charles did the keyboards on the choruses. And then this was the first time as well where we brought in different backup singers, because Lanisha was actually on tour with Jennifer Lopez. Mm-hmm. One of these days I think Jennifer will do something in her career. So, but and then what happened was there's this local DJ in Muscle Shoals, and they're from the Singing River Media Group, and he's been the biggest In Theory fan and supporter. And helped us, in a way, break the good old boys code in Muscle Shoals to support new music, support rock music, and then he would always send me his projects. It's a very interesting dynamic. Whenever I have an idea, I would stop by his parking lot and say, "Hey, I'm in your parking lot. Come on out." And then he would send me his songs, and it turns out, he's a great singer. He's a good guitar player, good producer, bassist. And then he's trying to get better as a guitar player. So I would send him, almost away like guitar lessons, video guitar lessons from my iPhone. I'm like, hey, try this idea, and anyway. But hearing his vocals, I knew he'd be good on this thing. And on top of that, he's taken lessons from Tony.
Oh wow!
Like, so Tony is one of his goats. I mean, he thinks Tony is one of his singing idols, and Tony helped him with certain techniques to get a little bit thicker in his voice.
Yeah. And
I have to say, it was one of the easiest vocal sessions in my life. I brought him in last minute. We were scrambling because time is such a commodity more than ever before. And I reached out to a couple of people. I knew Lanisha was with Jennifer Lopez, and a couple of people I was looking at. So I just reached out to him like maybe 3 PM. Hey, can you come over at 6? And he showed up, never heard the song, put it in. I said, okay, this is what I hear. And I think he ended up doing 20 tracks on that song. Took us about 35, 40 minutes. It was done.
Wow.
And then because he did such a great job, we brought him on like the first 2 shows with us. And then I think he'll be coming in and out a bit, as a utility player in theory, because he's also a keyboardist. He's a bassist. He's a guitar player, and he's a great vocalist. And we're trying to figure out how to work it out as time goes on. Again, because even guitar-wise, sometimes I have 3 different tunings on the guitars, and sometimes I have a 6-string, a 12-string, and say 2 tunings. And so what I've been able to do for the first set of shows is compromise all these different parts to make it like the record, but I'm not playing like a record. So I have my guitar tuned a certain way, and I do enough of each part that it's the song. But if we bring in a utility player, then it'll open me up to do, different things.
I can't imagine what's going on behind stage when you're tuning your guitar that much. I mean, what kind of a crew do you have with you on that road?
Well, I really don't. So far I have 2 different sets of techs, guitar techs, and I have to say both have been amazing. And one kid I discovered on a film set. It's the funniest thing. It was, and I just watch people, from afar, and I just watched this kid and his work ethic, whatever they want him to do. Okay, you drive this person from here to here. You go in the mud, and I need you to, whatever, take these. I remember I saw him painting styrofoam to make it look like a graveyard, and whatever they need him to do, he did everything with a smile, and he just worked 18-hour days, 16-hour, like every single day on the film set, and he was very consistent, and he was a bass player. So the funny thing with him was he was telling me that that Victor Wooten is his favorite bass player, and he was showing me all his medals from bass camp, and so Victor is a good friend, so we got Victor on the phone on FaceTime, and Victor's such a gracious man. He's such a good dude. He ended up talking to the guy at least for a half hour, 40 minutes, and just took the time out to share with his wisdom to this young kid. And this is the funniest thing. It was, Mike, I'm talking to Victor Wooten. I'm like, yeah, you're on my phone. But anyway, so we initially again, I've just used them for so many things. There was also time we did Tony and I did the Muscle Shoals Candlelight series. This Tony and I sent this kid all around Muscle Shoals to get us like 300 candles, and there he is,
Wow.
busting his chops and finding us all, because I'm very particular, so different size of candles and different, I'm like, they had to be a certain color and, certain heights. And, but he went out there for like 4 or 5 hours, found me all the candles, had them all set up, and he's been assistant engineer on a few things. And, before I even step into his session, everything's set up like the way I like it.
Yeah.
And so I see that he remembers, B, he has a great attitude, and C, a great work ethic. And so I brought him in. I said, "Hey, would you want to be a guitar tech?" And sure enough, he exceeded my expectations on that. So, okay, I said, "Here's my tuning. This is my guitar. This is my 1, my 2, my number 3. This is how I have my pedals set up." I said, "I don't even want to see my guitar until I'm about to step on stage."
Mm-hmm.
So I put full trust into him, and here he goes. And he put little like stickers on back, because all guitars are duplicates, right? So, but I have my favorites in order: my 1, my 2, my 3, and he has little markers on it. And I was like, he's so like on it.
Yeah.
Like, every little thing. And as soon as I was done, took the guitar, had everything labeled. He even helped, the people with the amps, and he was fantastic. So he was great. And then when we did our last one out in New York, I brought in a guy who owns a music store, and who's friends with one of my best friends, and he was at that caliber as well. So so I'm lucky so far that I have 2 great techs that can handle the micness.
So when you come to Charlotte, do you have enough time to where you'll go to a Sam Ash or a Guitar Center and things like that and work with local musicians?
No, not really. Everything is so fast. It just goes. I really don't have time. And, the only time I've made time is, say, for rehearsing in Nashville, but we've changed now our location of rehearsing in Muscle Shoals. But when I would go to Nashville, I'd always go, a day earlier, to have some time. But usually, no, it goes so fast. It's just, and you have to understand too, with in theory, I'm sort of like, I have many roles, so I have to make sure the transportation is right, the hotels are right, the guys and gals are getting there on time, you load in, sound check, so there's a lot on my plate that that I don't get to do, if you want to call it the fun stuff, so to speak.
Yeah, so you're almost like the stage manager as well.
Yeah, I'm sort of like stage manager, road manager, travel agent. But so we're bringing in, like I said, some other people have been very helpful, and I'm trying to take a lot of the weight off my shoulders, and especially in this next phase, because now that we've switched management and distribution, our new distribution now, we're really excited to announce. So now we're with Orchard by Sony Music, which was a huge step up for us. And dealing with them I love it, because the guy is. I thought I was very meticulous. This guy's my nemesis on meticulousness, if that's a word. And while we have Worlds and Fires technically on right now, Orchard Sony, they haven't really pushed it. It's out there, in their system. But the next single, Promised Land, will, we've been planning that now for 6 weeks.
Wow.
And, and they're doing certain things to push the hell out of it, essentially. And then expanding us in different markets that are not your typical markets, but will enhance the visibility of the band. And, but I like it that they're so meticulous about every little thing on how they want to roll it out. It's like they're not, they don't leave any chance for it not to succeed.
Right.
And I just love that, and that I love it that they care as much as we do about the success of the band and how we're going to be presented. So,
Wow. So where can people go to find out more about In Theory as well as the tour? Because like I said, you're coming through Charlotte.
Yeah, we are. Are you going to come see us?
Absolutely.
That'll be awesome. And then what you have to do before we even go on stage, you have to do like, do you want to be brilliant? Who wants to be brilliant?
So true.
Right? I mean, how can we not start a show in Charlotte without you saying something about being brilliant? But if you want to find out anything with In Theory, it's called InTheoryOriginal.com. You know, we updated the website. It's extremely detailed. There's also a section if you want to pre-order the new CD. You can order the original, the first In Theory CD. The bio is extremely thorough.
Good.
The EP canon is thorough. The tour dates are always updated every 2 days, and we keep getting shows added. Again, every few days. And then what we also did, which is a little bit different than I think a lot of websites. So there's 9 songs on the SoundCloud player. So you can't download it, but you can listen to the songs as if you were going to listen to a record.
Oh, nice.
So it gives really like the full scope of what In Theory is, because again, if you can listen to Worlds of Fire, you would have one perception of In Theory. If you heard, say, Memories, it's something else. Or if you heard the River song, that's a different side of In Theory. So while rock, I guess In Touch of Blues is our core, there's a lot more to it, and I want people to experience the way I experienced when I was a kid, or when I buy a record. I want them to have that journey, and going on a website gives them that journey. They can hear, every facet of In Theory, and if they happen to like In Theory even more, then they can buy CD 1 and they can pre-order the new CD, Promised Land, which comes out at the end of March, I think, or first week of April. And, and of course there's links for, Spotify for certain singles, but we're limiting on how we're doing it. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing I guess we can announce is I always make different variations. As I told you, I make 7 masters. Sometimes a little bit less, but somewhere around that number. So what we're doing with Heroes, The River Song, and Stain on My Soul, which were previously released with a different distributor and so forth, we made a 2024 remaster of those 3 songs.
Oh, that's cool. And
now those will be available through Orchard Music, Orchard Distribution, and they can be only available on digital download. Now, if you want the original master, then you have to buy the CD.
Yeah.
So it gives something a little bit different for the listener, different experience.
Wow. Dude, you got to come back to this show. You got to come back. The door is always going to be open for you. And I love the way that you and I just, no matter what, things got in the way, but we still chipped through that mountain and got through, man.
It's so funny because it's funny. Like, right, we were supposed to speak last week, and
the week before.
I had one date, Jody had one date, you had one date, and she showed me the confirmation. She says, no, Arrow confirmed this date. She's confirming a different date. And then I'm on the East Coast now instead of being on East Coast time versus Central time, because I'm here out in Atlanta. So yeah, everybody was not on the same page. But I'm glad we got to make it work. And it'd be awesome, obviously, if you can make it to the show. And we're trying to set up 2 more shows in that area, but I know there's limitations in Charlotte, unfortunately,
Yeah.
So, but hopefully, you get to see us that first show. That'll be awesome. I think that's in May, I think sometime in May.
It sure is. It sure is. It absolutely is.
So, yeah, so that's our deal. So if you make it to the show, you have to announce us.
I'll do it. All right, man, go be with your family. All right, dude.
All right. I appreciate it. And always appreciate everything you've done for us. Thank you, Ara.
All right, man. You be brilliant.
And you be brilliant.
You tried to beat me at it.
That's right.
All right, bye, guys.
No, I have to come up with a better line. I can't think of the line.
You have a great day, okay?
You too. Have a good one. Bye-bye.